Hi, everybody. I'm glad that you could join us tonight for Calvert Library Homeschooling and You. My name is Michaela. I'm one of the librarians at the Calvert Library. I generally at the Prince Frederick branch, although everything's a little wonky right now. But tonight, what I really wanted to do is give you a chance to interact with some experienced homeschoolers, to ask your questions, learn from their wisdom, learn from some of our failures. I myself am also a homeschooling parent. And then I also wanted to show you some of the resources, the virtual resources that we have available to you at the Calvert Library. So I'm going to kick it off by having everybody introducing themselves. I'll go first. Like I said, my name is Michaela. I have been homeschooling for 7 years. This is our 7th year. I have 3 children that I homeschool, including one who is autistic, one who has some learning disabilities, and one who's just a little firecracker. We are mostly eclectic homeschoolers, meaning we don't use a lot of curriculum. We mostly follow our children's leads. However, I do use curriculum for language arts, kind of. I use a curriculum called Brave Writer that is really about book clubbing and celebrating the joy that you can find in reading. And I also use math curriculum for my children. And I use different curricula for each of the children because they each learn differently. We also like to spend a lot of time outside running amok, getting into all of the programs that are available in this area. So that's where I am. I also have a middle schooler, which sort of puts me in a unique category, and the other 2 are in elementary. So Denny, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Sorry, I keep muting. I have a dog. I'm Denny Wason. I've been homeschooling for 11 years. I range from a 16-year-old who's dual enrolling at Anne Arundel Community College and all the way down to, I have a 1st grader this year. I have 4 kids total. I too use different curriculum for language arts. It's different for each kid. Obviously, because my old knowledge. Math, I recently, Kathy Warman, Math Made Understandable. Just a little plug for her because I love her. She's amazing. And we, I don't know, every year is different. So that's me. And I guess my other background is I used to teach public school. And now I stay at home with my kids and homeschool. That's it.
Thank you, Denny. How about Natasha? Would you like to introduce yourself next?
Hi, everybody. I'm Natasha, and I've been homeschooling for the last 13 years. I started homeschooling with various curriculums, and then about maybe 10 years ago, I just fully got into unschooling. So we use no curriculums at all whatsoever. I have 4 children, 19, 13, 10, and 7, and my 19-year-old is in her 2nd year in the Air Force.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. How about Molly? Would you like to introduce yourself next?
Hi, everyone. My name is Molly. My background is public libraries and also school libraries. I am a newer homeschooler compared to some of these folks on the panel. I'm in my 2nd year of homeschooling my son, who is in 2nd grade. The reason that I am homeschooling is because my son has a lot of special needs that made public school really, really challenging for him. I also don't use a set curriculum. He's a really sensory oriented guy, so we really learn by doing. So it's not just writing letters, it's making them with Play-Doh and drawing them in the sand and things like that. We do a lot outside, a lot with Calvert Nature Society, and then a lot with books too, because libraries are kind of my way in. So that's how we do what we do.
Thank you, Molly. And last but not least, Trisha, would you please introduce yourself?
I'm Trisha Pellegrino, and I've been homeschooling for 14 years now. I have 4 kids, 2 have already graduated. my oldest two. And my third is in her senior year. So she is on her last year. She's dual enrolled at CSM. This will be her third year dual enrolled. And then I have a second grader. So it would seem as though I'm almost done, but I'm not. I still have plenty to go. We use a lot of different things. We haven't always homeschooled. We started homeschooling when my oldest son was in third grade. He has autism and a lot of learning disabilities, and the school system wasn't working for him. And so we started, and everyone else just followed. And we use primarily a Charlotte Mason type of approach. I do Sunlight, but I also utilize some workbooks, usually Catholic oriented Christian materials. And we do a lot of some independent stuff that he does on his own with my littlest, and then we do a lot of read alouds. We like read alouds in our house, and we move a lot, and we like field trips, and I think that's what we're missing most, that and our friends this year. But it's the other thing, I guess, that I used to be a scientist before I started homeschooling, and so now I teach middle school and high school science over at Anchor Christian Collaborative. And so I might be able to give some input in that aspect. So I've got, I've dealt with the school system with regards to and homeschooling with special needs, and as well as tutorials and teaching and things. And getting through the college process, which we're going through now.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously we have a wealth of information here. Everybody's experience is very different. And everybody here is really open to answering your questions. But before we get to that, I wanted to give you a quick tour of some of our online resources. So I'm going to share the screen here in just a moment. Okay, so you should be able to see our screen now. And this is our home site. It's calvertlibrary.info. If you'd saved the page a while ago, it changed, maybe 2 to 3 years ago. So make sure you know our website is calvertlibrary.info. And from our homepage, to get to the Homeschool Resources, you're going to come over here and hover over Read, Listen, Research, and Learn, and then you're going to come down here to Homeschool Resources. And here we have an extensive list. You can see just by zooming through, we've got a lot of resources. But there's no reason to feel overwhelmed. At any time, our librarians are able to talk you through and help you if you need to figure out how to use a particular resources. The first list is just things that you can get with your library card. All of our books, videos, obviously, that we can bring in through the Tri-County Library System and also throughout the state through Marina. We have a ton of premium digital resources. I'll get to those. And then, of course, when we are finished with this COVID thing, or at least move past it enough to have our meeting rooms available, you can absolutely reserve meeting rooms to run homeschool focused programs. Now that's something interesting in Calvert County because our community centers are technically not supposed to be used or reserved for homeschool programs, but the library meeting rooms are available to you. And that can be a program for 3 people or a program for 100 people. So that's a really good resource that we have free to you. Here's some information just about homeschooling in general. The laws under the Maryland Code. Maryland homeschooling laws are pretty vague, and that's actually a good thing because it gives you a lot of freedom to make the choices that are right for your family. Okay, the Calvert County Parental Instruction page, this is where you'll fill out your homeschooling form. You have to fill out that form before you begin homeschooling. There's information on their website that tells you how to do it. You may have heard the term umbrella organizations. In Maryland, there's a list of umbrella organizations that if you choose to review with them, you have to follow the umbrella rules, versus if you choose to review with the county, you have to follow the county's rules for reviews. Umbrellas almost function like a private school in that they can set the reviews however they choose to set them. So I review with an umbrella organization, and their annual review is a conversation with a person who helps discuss with me the challenges we're facing, the accomplishments we've made. It's a really helpful process to me. I used to review with Calvert County. There were no issues there. I just had to follow along with their guidelines. The state standards here tell you what the standards and guidelines are for public school. So some people, when they're homeschooling, either for a short period of time or if they plan to homeschool throughout, like to keep up with what is being taught in public school. And so the state standards section will tell you that. Excuse me, one sec. Okay, so homeschool associations is our next section. The Maryland Homeschool Association is a statewide advocacy association. They will give you information about any laws that are up for discussion or passage. They'll also have information about how to meet guidelines. If you have an issue with your reviewer, you can also go to them for advice. Next one down is the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. This is a faith-based organization that provides similar to what the Maryland Homeschool Association provides, although they can also provide legal advice in the event that you need it. There's a couple other organizations that you can feel free to check out that either have faith-based information or secular information. And now here we are at the Calvert Library. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to show you was our premium digital resources. These are really fantastic. We can just look at the children's resources here. And just a few of them. Gale is for doing research. If you have a child that's doing a research project or you're trying to find information, you can type in whatever topic you're looking at. Let's say butterflies. You do a search. Here you come up with a number of resources. They have the citations in there. A lot of them have pictures. It's a great encyclopedia resource, free to use. Gale is also available for elementary school, so you can find different levels of information. Brainfuse is another fantastic resource. You have to have your library card number, put it in there, but with Brainfuse, you can get help. Parents can get help. Some parents are using math curriculums that are more advanced than their math knowledge. I'm one of those parents. I have a child that's more advanced than I am in math. You can actually get free live tutoring in math through Brainfuse. If you have a child that needs help with writing and they want to get feedback from somebody other than a parent, there's actually a writing lab where you can submit papers. You'll get feedback within 24 hours. There's also test prep, so PSAT, SAT, ACT, AP tests. There's help to prepare for those. Homeschoolers are eligible to take all of those tests, so it's a great way to do that, and it's all free with your library card. Let's see, what else? Oh, I don't even need to go there. Let me back up one sec. Okay, so Dogo News. This is a curated news site that has all sorts of different fun resources. I used to send one of my children every day to a different kids news site and say, find an interesting article and come tell me what you've learned. So this has all sorts of different random subjects. You can have them do it by subject. You can also set it to by interest level. So if you have a first grader, it's going to go ahead and customize the content and also the reading level. Really fun, lots of random things. Sometimes we like to start our days with a random tidbit just to get our brains working. So this has been a really fun resource for us. Novelist is another great resource. If your child is either getting into reading and needs to know, what can I read next? What can I read next? Or maybe you have a reluctant reader that has a favorite book. You can type in what your child's favorite book is and it will make another recommendation. So if it's One and Only Ivan, you do a search. So it'll make some other recommendations by the same author. or that are in the same genre. The other thing you can do is say, I like this author. I want more suggestions for books that are like Catherine Applegate books, and it'll make recommendations for a different author. You can check out the books then by that author. So it's a great way to explore what other books might engage your children. We also have Tumble Book Library, which are online books, interactive books. World Book Online is an encyclopedia, and it is the virtual version is fantastic. Definitely check it out and play around on it. Excuse me. Okay, so now our homeschool specific resources. We have had a couple of librarians, some who are homeschoolers and some who aren't, try and curate this list. There's a number of curricula. There are a number of blogs that are really upkept and have tons of ideas and suggestions for things you can do to homeschool. I really encourage you to go play through, click through these, see what ideas might get sparked in your mind. Then here we have our list of local to Calvert County homeschooling groups and tutorials. Some of these are co-ops where parents stay on site and have to be involved in the teaching. Some of them are tutorials, which functions somewhat like a mini private school where you drop your child off for the day, you pay a tuition, and your child gets their education that way. Excuse me. There's a number of them. Some are still even taking students this year. Some may be closed for the semester, but considering reopening in the spring. Absolutely click through though. There's a ton of information on them. Then here we have a list of curriculum and teaching resources. Some of these are free, like ABC Mouse, you can get it free through the library, okay? Some of them cost a lot of money, but again, go ahead, click through, take a look. It'll help you figure out what's right for your family and what you might need some more, might need to pass on. Kathy Duffy Reviews is an interesting site because you can actually put in some information and it will help you suggest curriculum for your family. There's, she's done extensive reviews on so many curriculum options, and you can read through the reviews, you can read through her course, you can read through other programs. So she's a fantastic resource and it's free to see her reviews. And then this is one of my favorite sections, our local organizations. Calvert County and Southern Maryland in general has so much for homeschoolers. A lot of these events are free. A lot of them are minimal cost. And when I say minimal cost, I'm talking $5 to $8 per family. Some of them are more expensive than that. But even in this day and age dealing with COVID, a lot of these organizations have really shifted and gotten creative and are finding ways to offer programming. And I have found over the years that they're also really responsive. So if there's a type of program that your family is interested in, reach out to these organizations because they have been working so hard to serve the homeschooling community in Southern Maryland. Most of these organizations have homeschool days in the spring and the fall. So, you know, this year's obviously a little bit nutty, but I would absolutely start checking again to see maybe in the spring they're going to be running them. Some are doing them in the fall outside modified with mask wearing. So as you can see, there's a very extensive list. And then this is our list of virtual field trips. These were pulled off of other sites on the web. Some of these are so cool. Like you can go to, let's see, Buckingham Palace. And you can learn about the palace. You can take a virtual tour inside the palace. You can get information about the things that you see, the pictures hanging on the wall. There's museums that have tours. There's all sorts of different places around the United States, around the world. Some of these places you can actually get a better view in a virtual tour than you would get in person. So there's an extensive list of those. So they're really interesting. So this is what we've got to offer specifically for homeschoolers. And again, if you have any questions or are looking for any type of support, absolutely inquire at the library. If the librarian that you come in contact with doesn't know, they will find one of us, especially one of the homeschooling librarians, to try and help you out. So I'm going to stop sharing here and I'm going to turn it over to questions. You can type your questions into the chat, or you can type them into the Q&A, and then our panelists will have a chance to answer. And panelists, if you have any thoughts that the little tour sparked in your mind and you have things that you'd like to share while we wait for some questions to come in, feel free. I think I accidentally muted myself. I was saying, panelists, if you had any things that you wanted to share while we wait for some questions to come in, feel free to share some tidbits.
I don't know if I have anything to add, but I learned a few things like that I didn't know were available at the library that we're going to be looking into. So it was helpful for me.
Oh, I'm so glad. The panelists that are here are happy to answer questions about curriculum that we've used, field trips we've been on, challenges we faced. I know for a lot of us, we had to fail a lot before we felt we could soar. Some of us maybe still don't feel like we can soar. Does anybody have any questions?
I just want to add that the really nice thing about homeschooling is if something isn't working, you don't have to keep doing it. That was my biggest lesson last year. If something really wasn't vibing with me or my son, we could try a different approach or a different book, or maybe just table it for now and wait to see when he's ready for it. So just because something isn't working, it doesn't mean you are not doing a good job. It doesn't mean you can't switch it up and find something that does.
Absolutely. That's a really good point, Molly. I know in our 7 years, we've gone through a number of different curriculums, lifestyles. We've tried scheduling things. We've tried backing off and seeing where our days take us. So I do have a couple questions, and the first one is library question. Can I have a Calvert library card if I live in Howard County? Absolutely. You can have a Calvert library card. You can apply on our website, and you're good to go with that. And then there's another question about whether or not the library offers, excuse me, any all-inclusive curriculum. Excuse me. The library does not offer any curriculum itself. Now, we could help you piece together materials from different curriculums. For instance, the Brave Writer curriculum that I use has an extensive book list. So we could help you pull together all of those books, but we don't design any curriculum. We are open to programming that's interesting to you. So if you have things that would help with the curriculum you're planning, we can absolutely try and offer some programs. Okay, let's see. County review requirements. I have a question about the Calvert County review requirements. Is there a panelist that feels comfortable tackling that?
I don't know. I'm with the umbrella, so I don't know how Calvert County does
So
there.
you're an umbrella. Are any of our panelists reviewing with the county?
I am.
Do you think you could answer a question about what the review process is like?
Absolutely, sure. Was there a specific question or just an overview?
The question is, what are the county review requirements? This person says they're tracking what they're doing daily, and so they're curious about the county review requirements.
In my personal experience so far, it's been very easy to review with the county. They're looking to see that your child is receiving consistent instruction in all of the main subject areas. And that looks different for every family, and the reviewers are very aware of that, at least in my experience. So for a lot of the things I do, because my son is not writing yet, I bring in pictures and show him working on things, or field trips that we've gone on. They really don't want you to bring your entire curriculum and binders and planners and all of that. As long as you can show that regularly you are instructing your child, then you have nothing to worry about. It's been very easy. They're very supportive.
Yeah, I think Molly summed it up pretty well. I used to review with the county, and we do have another question about whether or not you have to teach your child on the grade level that they would be in public school. And I can say in my experience, I have a child who did not start reading until they were 10. So obviously their language arts work was not on par with what would have been expected in their public school grade. And And that was never an issue when we were reviewing with the county. The county requirement, and you can find this information through our website, is that you show regular, this is a state requirement and the county follows it, that you show regular instruction. So for us, I would usually show 2 to 3 samples of work per semester. You review once, excuse me, once in the winter, and once at the end of the year, usually late May or early June. So in January, I would take 2 to 3 samples of work per subject. And in May or June, I would take 2 to 3 samples of work. And I was never given any sort of trouble about grade level work.
Yeah, that's true for my family as well. One of the reasons that I am homeschooling is my child has a lot of learning delays. English isn't his first language either, so he was just, behind before he even got into school. They've been very supportive of all the things that we've been doing with him, and I say he's in 2nd grade. Academically, he's really probably lower than that, but that has not been a problem.
Go ahead, Denny.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that wherever you review in the state of Maryland, it's under the COMAR regulations. And someone said they're tracking what they do every day, which is great if you need that, but you don't need to show them that. And every year on Homeschoolers of Calvert County, I'd say, print out COMAR, take it with you. And it's because we don't want to give them any more than is legally required, because then they're going to start to expect that. And we really, the seasoned homeschoolers, really don't want to be giving the county anything that is not absolutely required. And they can't say, your Johnny's in 6th grade and he's reading in 2nd grade, because COMAR doesn't say that. It says that you have to be doing consistent instruction. So literally just print them out. It's like 5 pages, take it with you. And if they ask you for something that's not in COMAR, just say nicely, can you show me in COMAR where it requires I need that? Because we really don't want to give them anything that's not legally required.
Good point.
That's a great point, Denny. Along those lines, Natasha, do you think you can share a little bit about your experience unschooling?
Absolutely. Okay. So I'm going to start backwards. So my oldest, like I said, she's 19 and she's in the Air Force. And funny story real quick. When I took her to the recruiter's office at 17 years old, he asked, typical questions, her school, mailing address, everything. And I gave him the address and I said apartment 204, and he's typing and then he's like, wait a minute, what? And I said, well, we homeschool, so that our address is where we live. And so he's like, wait a minute, tell me more about this. So basically, I didn't do any standardized testing with her. We didn't do any kind of testing work. Like I didn't even do 11th or 12th grade with her. Like when she was probably about 10 years old, I went with no curriculum at all. Just pretty much whatever she was interested in, that's pretty much what she learned. She taught herself Japanese. She was just like all over the place in what she wanted to learn. When she wanted to go to the Air Force, she went to the library, got the ASVAB book, started studying it, went to the recruiter's office. No, before the recruiter's office, I said, okay, you think you're done with school? She said, yeah, Mommy, I think I'm done. I'm ready for the real world. I said, okay. I printed out a homeschool diploma for her. And lo and behold, the recruiter accepted her high school diploma. I was her teacher. Her dad was the principal. And that's all we had on her high school diploma. And it was a pretty easy process, but I will admit this. Before I gave her high school diploma, I was kind of nervous because, you hear the chatter about, well, what about college? What about they want to go to the military? What about their grades? So I was that close to like getting a GED book and have her do the whole GED thing. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is not even what we're doing. Like, why would I even, consider that? Just listen to all the chatter. And then come to find out, didn't need any of that. And she excelled, not only on the test to get into the Air Force, also in basic training and also in tech school, where she had to actually study, even though she didn't have to do any of that at home. And she's doing well. She's in her 2nd year now. And unschooling is very scary in the sense that you have to let go of all control over the education or learning of your children. Like, you really have to trust that they do want to learn and that they will learn at their own pace in their own time. And it's still kind of hard sometimes. You're like, okay, what are they learning? What are they doing? And then sometimes they just surprise you. And it's like my daughter, she's 7, and she'll just start adding 4 numbers, like 23 plus 46, like on her own. Like, nobody's telling her, okay, let's do some math, put these numbers together. Like, she'll just come out and say, Mommy, I know what 22 plus 10 is. And I'm like, okay, that's great. So it's a roller coaster kind of thing. You know, you first get on a roller coaster, you're kind of excited, but then you're kind of scared, and then you're screaming, and then it goes up, and then it comes down. You're like, whoa! So it's like, it's kind of like that.
Thank you for sharing. Natasha brought up some good points, and that is that when you homeschool, your child will not be issued a diploma by the state of Maryland. You can issue your child a diploma, and you can do that, like Natasha said, whenever you feel they have completed their course of study at home. Some tutorials and co-ops will also issue a diploma that's from their organization. But as Natasha pointed out, and we've heard from Tricia and Denny, that is not a hindrance for your child going into the military or college or trade schools or post-high school employment. If you have concerns about that, all of those organizations, colleges, the military, trade schools, and businesses have people that can give you some guidance of what they want to see. Some colleges might want to see a transcript, but they have like a homeschool liaison that will be able to help talk you through what they want to see, so you know how to keep track of information and prepare your child so they're ready to go on to their next step, whatever that next step might be.
Can I add something real quick? As someone who's gone through that whole college application process multiple times, I have found, we used to review with the county, and we moved to reviewing with an umbrella group, I don't know, probably 8 years ago. And it was immensely helpful to have that person as a guidance counselor during the application process. The transcripts that my children, they helped me put together that, and actually sent the transcript to the college. And I did find that that made the whole process for us a lot easier. We got a lot of help and a lot of guidance that we would not have gotten if we were going through the county. And so I think when your kids are young, you know, middle school and under, that the county is great. But if you do think that they're college bound, and I don't know, I don't have any experience at the military or trade school, but it can.
Oh, we might have lost Tricia. We'll see if she comes back to answer. But in the meantime, I did get another question, and that's, with the increase in homeschooling this year, is there concern that Maryland will become more strict in their homeschool requirements? So that's a great question, first of all, to ask with the Maryland Homeschool Association, because like I said, they are really keeping tabs on what's happening up in Annapolis with legislation. The laws can't just change overnight. There has to be the full legislative process, and you can just sign up for their updates and they'll keep you posted. I don't know if either of you would like to answer what your impression is on what may happen or concerns that you may have. I'll say that I've seen a lot of chatter amongst homeschoolers that, Tricia, we'll come back to you because we want to hear the rest of your answer. But I will say that I've heard some concern that, like Denny, I think, mentioned before, if people start giving reviewers too much, that there will then become an expectation that all homeschoolers have to provide, for instance, a daily log or an attendance log. So experienced homeschoolers are really encouraging new homeschoolers to stick to what's required in the COMAR, in the already existing state laws. And you can do whatever you feel comfortable with to keep your family on track in the way that's important to you. But when you're reporting to the county, stick to what the law says so that they don't get the idea that, okay, they're giving us more, we're going to take more, or we're going to require more. Does anybody else have thoughts on that?
That's my exact thought, is don't give them any more than absolutely. I had the homeschoolers of Calvert County has increased by double, in the last couple months. And I know that I sound like, negative Nancy or, harping whatever, but I don't want people to give them any more than you need. But if you need to keep a schedule and you need that for you, then do you. But you don't need to share. It's not like you're going to get a first prize ribbon that you did this golden star. It's a pass or fail. And you're not going to, it's not going to get you anything, and it's just going to hurt the rest of us. Is kind of how I feel as a veteran homeschooler. Saying that, I have never reviewed with the county. I've always used an umbrella group, and I did that because I taught with the county. I'm in Anne Arundel, and if I thought that her would have worked, I would have sent my kid. Them telling me, but I am concerned. But again, Homeschool Legal Defense Fund is really good on keeping line. I am a member because I know they're working hard to preserve my rights.
Thank you, Denny. I wanted to touch on something that Denny brought up. She said the reviews with the county are pass-fail. And what happens if you do not provide sufficient evidence isn't like you fail and they say, oh, you just have to send your kids back to school. You're actually told that you need to bring more evidence the next time. So there's almost nothing you could do going into your first review that they would say, this is it, you can't keep trying. In Calvert County in particular, most of the reviewers are homeschoolers or are retired teachers who are very strongly in support of homeschoolers. And when we reviewed with the county, I got some of the best advice, homeschooling advice I got from my reviewer, who said, I was having a power struggle with one of my children on multiplication. And she said, why are you doing that? And I said, because I was new. I said, because they need to learn multiplication. And she said, why? And I said, because it's time to learn multiplication. And she said, trust me, they'll learn multiplication. Why don't you go do something different so you're not fighting with your child about multiplication every day? And that came straight from my reviewer. So I have had nothing but a positive experience reviewing with the county, and there's nothing to fear going into it because, like I said, the only thing they can tell you is you haven't provided sufficient data to them, and they will give you some suggestions about what to provide the next time. And then you can also refer back to COMAR, because if somebody tells you you need to provide, a calendar showing 20 dates of some, you don't need to provide that. They can tell you that, but that's not what you need to provide. And in my experience, Calvert County reviewers are not going to tell you that.
My reviewer actually thanked me for having restraint with the amount of things that I brought to my review. They have to see a lot of people. They do not want to read a giant textbook of your life. Like, they just want to make sure your kid is being educated. So just bring what you need to bring and don't add any extra, because they actually really don't want to read it.
Molly, we got a question about, you said that you share pictures in your review, and so what's the format for sharing them? Do you print them? Do you bring them on your cell phone? Do you bring videos or pictures of your art projects?
So what I've been doing is I keep like a running Google Doc at home where I'm just jotting down what subjects are we covering, what field trips or books, kind of applied to that. And then I usually attach 2 or 3 pictures for each subject. Just print it out. So it's it starts as a digital document, and I print it out just to make sure that I don't have any technology issues when I'm going in. I have it on paper. It might be a picture, like a close-up of my son's artwork. It might be a picture of him, posing in front of a Native American structure on a field trip. So it looks, different for each subject. For music, it might be him playing an instrument. I haven't brought videos, but I know other people who have. For me, the pictures really just seem to work best, but I don't see why videos wouldn't be great.
Thank you. Some people do wonder if you have to bring your children in with you for county reviews, and the answer to that is no, you do not. Most people will encourage you not to bring your children in, just because they're trying to get you in and out, and you're sitting in a room at a table with a reviewer. I will say that my children were curious one time. They wanted to know what happened at a review. So I brought them, and it was fine. They interrupted me 3,765 times, and they threw in their own thoughts on things, and it probably took me 10 times as long as a regular review, but it was fine. But you are not required to produce your children. You do not have to parade them around in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I definitely don't bring my son. He's a lot younger, and he's not a sit still and be quiet sort of child, so that would not have gone too well for us.
All right, do we have any other questions for our panelists or about what the library has to offer? Or do our panelists have any other thoughts that you'd like to offer to our homeschoolers?
Oh, yes, I wanted to add that there are a lot of Facebook groups. There are some people that, there's one group called, I think they're called like the Night Owls, and they homeschool their kids like in the overnight hours. And there are also some homeschool groups that's on Facebook that's called, they do road traveling. So they homeschool on the road. They have one that's called game schooling, and their whole pretty much curriculum is surrounded around games. So if you're looking for something that's something different than what you were used to, what you were hearing, if you just go on Facebook and just put any kind of like homeschool group and just any kind of search, you'll find all different kinds of homeschool groups.
That's actually a super point. And Denny, if you want to plug your homeschool group, Denny has a long-lasting, very informative Calvert County focused homeschool Facebook group. Oh, Denny might be frozen, so I'll share it for her. It's called Homeschoolers in Calvert County. And it is, she said she's up to 1,000 members. And there are people who homeschool in all different kinds of ways.
Sorry, I'm back in the barns. In Calvert County?
Yes. And Natasha mentioned game schooling. Board games are huge in the homeschooling community. They are a fantastic way to get your children excited about learning. There are board games literally about anything. Fractions you can learn through board games. Organic chemistry you can learn through board games. History you can learn through board games. Bible you can learn through board games. Music you can learn through board games. So game schooling, we're huge fans of the game schooling group and community, and they're also great at sharing deals for when you can find some popular board games on sale. So I highly recommend joining the game schooling groups on Facebook. We were also just joined by Faye, who's another one of our homeschooling librarians. So she has a lot of experience. She has, Faye, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Sorry, I'm late.
Just working.
Very late. I was working. My name's Faye Kepner. I have 2 kids. One of them is at CSM, ready to graduate this year. My son goes to a homeschool co-op, CCTS, up in Owings, and he's in 8th grade. And they actually just started back face-to-face. They're just trying that out. And so we've done co-ops, we've done non-co-ops, we've done group classes, we've done stuff at home, we've done awesome classes at CERC. I don't know if y'all talked about the Smithsonian environmental place up in Anne Arundel County. The name now escapes me. But I love homeschooling. I love talking about it. I love sharing stuff about it. I'm always glad to answer questions. So please always feel free to reach out. And everyone here is such a good resource. We're all lucky to have such wonderful resources available to us here in the county.
Thank you, Faye. Faye reminded me, when we're not in the COVID world, The Smithsonian's in DC offer a number of free classes for homeschoolers, really cool ones at the Museum of Natural History. There's always events at the art museums. In Baltimore, the aquarium offers events.
Maryland Science Center does too.
The Maryland Science Center offers events. The zoos, the National Zoo offers, and it's not free, it's actually fairly expensive, but it offers like a 6 or 8 week course in how to be a zoologist. I mean, we really live in a fantastic area if you're willing to put a little time in the car driving, for so many resources. Do we have any other questions from our attendees, or do our panelists have anything else you want to share? We've got a couple more minutes. So if there's some last questions or things you think are important. Yeah, Molly.
To kind of piggyback on the question someone asked about photographs, I actually just dug through my file box and found my write-up from last time. So this is literally what mine looks like. It's got, art, some bullet points, and then some pictures of him like doing his collages and painting. So I keep it really, really simple. Just bullet points. Here's what we did for health. Here's him cooking. For language arts, here's him doing his letters. So because my son is not writing yet, that's really the best way for us to show his work, because his work doesn't look like traditional worksheets and things like that. And I'm happy to email that to anyone if they have, if they want to look at it closer.
Thank you, Molly. I did want to, you reminded me of one thing. In Calvert County, if your child was in the school system and had an IEP and was receiving services, the only service they can continue to receive once they're homeschooling is speech. And they would receive that by going to their home school, not their home school, but whatever is their districted school, elementary, middle, or high school. And they would still be able to receive speech services, but they unfortunately would lose access to any other services that they had in their IEP. If you are homeschooling, you have some concerns or questions about your child's educational abilities, you can have an evaluation done through the school, and they will tell you the types of services they would provide if your child was in school, but they will not provide those services.
Yeah, my son is one of those who receives speech, which currently is online since they're not physically in schools yet. But they are keeping his IEP current and up to date. So if he ever did re-enter the public schools, they would have accurate information, not just based on his kindergarten years. So every 3 years, they told me, they evaluate anybody who receives services or IEPs. So we did a full speech, psychological, occupational, like all the different academic things over the summer. So they will do assessments, and you can take that information and do what you will with it. But that's important to know, is that they do try to keep your child's file up to date if they're receiving services.
And along those lines also, right now, homeschool children cannot participate in extracurriculars or sports through the public school system. Over the last couple of years, there have been some bills that have gone up for discussion about whether or not that's going to change. The Maryland Homeschool Association will absolutely keep you posted. Sometimes they've had people come and speak to members of our government to try and push that bill through. It hasn't happened yet, so stay tuned. And some people don't want it to happen. So, the homeschool community is diverse in their feelings on that. But that is good to know that if your child participates in a sport or has been in choir, that they will not have access to that anymore at home. Okay, final chance. Does anybody else have any more questions or final thoughts?
I do have one thing to say. My kids, they're all on the swim team at McDonough School. None of them obviously go to McDonough, but there are some sport teams that kids can, join, and it could be part of a school, and they don't have to go to that school to actually be on that particular team, because that particular swim team is outside of the school, even though they practice at the school. So those options are available to homeschoolers.
Absolutely. Private schools have a whole different set of rules, and some of them are
Right.
open to homeschoolers participating on their teams or in their theater department. Thank you for bringing that up. All righty, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us. I really want to thank our panelists for coming to share their experiences and their information, and our attendees for coming and asking questions. Please feel free to reach out to us at the Calvert Library if you have any other questions. And we hope to see you around on the homeschool boards and in community and at field trips. Everybody take care, stay safe, and have a
Thank
great
you.
night.
Good night, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks, Michaela. Bye.